Welcome to a Florida Cemetery channel. I'm a Florida Golden Girl, your host. Today's travel adventure takes me to downtown St. Cloud. We're going to be talking a little bit about the history of St. Cloud, to include a couple of interesting buildings that are of historical significance. Now, the interesting thing was the town of St. Cloud was formed in 1909, and the town was meant to be a retirement community home for Union soldiers from the Civil War. However, it didn't quite work out that way. St. Cloud was pretty much a farming community. Trying to get people to come down here to Florida, period, was very hard because of the climate. When you're talking in the summertime, when the temperatures are in the triple digits and there's no air conditioning, and they were looking for people to work the land. And so they figured, well, you have all these soldiers coming back from the war that had no home, no purpose, no direction. And so they gave them free land to come down here, bring your families. You have part of the land that you can work that will sustain you for a suitable living, and then the other part you grow and you sell. So that was how agriculture happened. That's how the trains connected each of the towns together, and then eventually things thrived from there. I have been to different railroad museums. I've been to Mount Dora, I've been to Winter Garden. We've been to Howey in the Hills, and each of them were part of that agricultural history. And if you go back to the archives and you look for Howey in the Hills, the mausoleum, the mansion, that was Senator Howey, who was a big player in how things were ran. If you go to Maitland, I've done things about Maitland's history that tie the history of Florida, and St. Cloud plays a big part of that. And so, and the thing is that St. Cloud used to be sort of like a one-horse town, and then in the later years, it's just sort of, the growth has really taken off. And if you follow any of Adam the Woo's videos, he strolls across down the streets of his hometown, and there's all these interesting murals. And I seen this, and this is something that I thought was super interesting, how this ties into the history of St. Cloud. I've done a couple of little vignettes about St. Cloud. There's going to be another video that's going to be coming up where me and my co-host, we toured the Veterans Memorial Library. And while I was there, she said, you need to go by the American Legion, which actually, if I pan it, it's right, it's that red building that you see in the distance, and we're going to walk over there next. So my co-host decided he wanted to get a coffee. I have no idea where he's at, but our next stop will be the American Legion. Let's rock. I know for many, this little sign on the building is something that I featured in a previous video, and this pavilion actually did exist at one time. And that's circa 1929. Okay, so now we're going to go to the American Legion, and we're going to do a little bit of talk about the American Legion. So the interesting thing about this building is that as the town formed in 1909, so did this building. It's a very historic building. And the thing is that this was founded in that time frame, and it was to serve as a retirement home for Civil War Union veterans. And so The location on this is Pennsylvania Avenue, and this was a gathering place for veterans by 1940. So the American Legion, this building had always played a vital role in the community because it works to support veterans and promote patriotism and help those that need it most, which is veterans, regardless of what war they fought in or what service they were in. And if you can see, here we go, right here. So this is Charles Swanson Post 80. And it just shows different persons' names on the bricks. You've got Henry Betts from 1911 and 1914. You've got Vietnam. You have Bronze Star people that were awarded. You have Korean. You have those that were retired. And then I seen this mural on the wall that I thought was kind of interesting. Now, the interesting thing is that you walk down any corner of this town and you're going to find some really cool murals. And when I walked to the American Legion, that parking lot should be familiar because we were there doing some filming, and it's kind of convenient because it's right near City Hall. And then if I go in a distance, I seen this kind of interesting mural. I'm not going to walk all the way down there, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to pan it so you can see. And so it shows that it was a farming town back in the 1900s, and that's how ice was delivered. And transportation was horse and buggy. Okay, so now we're going to go to another historic building here in St. Cloud that I thought you might find of interest. St. Cloud is kind of like a quiet town. The downtown part, what I have found is in many towns in Florida, they do this old historic thing. I found it when I was stationed in Virginia, but then in Virginia it was real. So the cool thing is that they'll make it out like it's historic, and in some cases the buildings are actually of the time period that the town was established, but then they build a whole theme around it, and then they get visitors come in, and then they'll hold out their hand and nickel and dime you to death. And so I found that out even more so when I went to St. Augustine and did some filming there. The last time I was in St. Augustine had been 3 years before, but the interesting thing is that the places that used to be free, you can't even get into until you pay $7 or $8, and it's just like it takes away from the enjoyment of just being able to walk down a street and kind of check out history, and then everybody's out, having their hand out for you to give them money. So we're at Centennial Park, and we are on to our next travel adventure. Okay, folks. We are at 1101 Massachusetts Avenue here in St. Cloud. And this building here is of historical significance. Built in 1914, this served as a meeting place for Union soldiers. And the name of this building was the Grand Army of the Republic building. So it's got a little black thing right here. So what it reads is the Grand Army of the Republic was a nationwide organization founded in 1866 for Union veterans of the Civil War. The town of St. Cloud, as I mentioned previously, was founded in 1909 as a community for Union veterans. The American Legion Post was named for the first Union veteran to die in St. Cloud, and the Post's original hall was located to the rear of this building on land donated by the Seminole Land and Investment Company in 1909. This hall hosted meetings and civic and social events, and when St. Cloud was incorporated in 1911, its first officials were elected here. The town grew and so did membership, and a larger hall was needed. So there was a local architect was contracted to lead the construction. People donated money and volunteered labor, and so this was for the Union Army of 61 to 65. And so it said that this was the largest post in Florida and the second largest in the country. So it says it's continued on the other side. So we go to the other side, and then it says, then it kind of talks about the building. I'm not going to get into that, but it just basically said that there was a second floor assembly room, and that was for Women's Relief Corps, Army and Navy, Union, sons and daughters of Union veterans, the Masons, the Order of the Eastern Star all met here. And then in 1940, it held its last meeting here. The last Union veteran that died in 43, he wrote, "Something deeply and fundamentally American is gone forever." The hall was managed by Masons until 1971. It was sold to private owners. So Dr. Woodrow and Sherry Everett used the top floor for engineering and educational research. And then this building did house many Civil War era artifacts. In 1997, it was listed as on the National Register of Historic Places. So you could see, do you see that right there? The faded leathering where it just says G19 GAR 14 Memorial Hall. It's been whitewashed, painted, or whatever. And so evidently it's a museum. And then it says it's opened 10 to 2 Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. Admission is $3, and group tours are available. So this is going to be something that I'm going to explore. If it's a museum, then I'm going to check it out, because we are all interested in history, and especially, considering that, our beloved YouTuber, this was the place he called home, and he really, really was fascinated by everything that this town had. And so here it just is the original plaque that they put to commemorate the building. And so we will be back. So this is another historic building here in St. Cloud. There's a few others, but I think these would be something that would be interesting to explore further. Now, the interesting thing is that the Florida was the South. It was not, it had no ties to Union Army at all. So I don't quite understand how a southern city played more host to Union versus Confederate. I need to look into that a little bit more. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed our little trip into the history of the town. There's much more to explore, and I just think that Every little town has got its hidden charm, just like every cemetery I visited has. And so take the time to explore your hometowns, folks. You'd be surprised at the things that you never thought were there that are. And with that, I want to thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next travel adventure. So long for now.